Greetings and salutations, all you beautiful individuals. It is another epi of League Unlock. Eric and Mark here with you, beauties, and we've gone off the cliff. We've hit absolute disaster. The first true adversity coming through for the boys, the Rats, Los Ratones. They kicked off EU Masters with a pretty dominant, convincing win as expected, but they match up against a surging blue wall, riding the momentum from their main team, making it to the finals at first stand, and things come crumbling down for the Rats. 7k gold lead in game one in this match. Typically, you see Velia get this fed on a Viego, and game's over.
Where were you, ladies and gentlemen, on this day where Los Ratones fell to the blue wall? Yes, in this first game, it's almost a slam dunk guarantee when you're getting that type of advantage on Viego. Never mind what we have seen from Velia on that pick. Really is usually one of the angles that you can get away with a lot of things, but one of the big problems I think we can identify pretty quickly in this one. Oh no, is that Baus on? Oh, that's not Sion in the top lane. That's a Poppy up there and absolutely not working the same type of tricks as we've become accustomed to seeing him be able to pull off for Los Ratones.
And, you know, to his credit, he gets solo killed a couple times, but doesn't really ever fall too behind and still remains relevant in this game. But yeah, shockingly, first team, I feel like to actually say, should we just ban Sion for a whole series? And yes, and it works. Baus does not look nearly as good, but the 7k gold lead they have in game one, and then, of course, because it's all public, you can hear the players talking, and post 50 minutes, you can hear it in their voices on the comms. A little bit, okay, get me on to the next one, and especially losing in the fashion like they did. If they won that game, fully expected they would have bounced back and won this series. But the sluggishness and, dare I say, tilt absolutely carries over into this game too, because they were getting caught out pretty much in every lane that we haven't seen from them throughout the entire split.
Which that's one of the things that I want to give credit and acknowledge is the beauty of this Los Ratones experiment is getting to get that type of voice comms and get that feel for what's going on with the team and the players. Because you know what? Compared to every other type of competition, traditional sports, sure, you can envision, you can be somewhat similar in the feelings or the moments that these professionals are, your, heroes and everything else. But everybody has been in that exact scenario within League of Legends where you're in a call or it's by yourself and you hear those voices. You know that tilt. You know it all too well. And we all see it here with Los Ratones, and we know how that plays out in game two. No Sion again, going out with the bans. And yes, it is even more pain for Los Ratones as they struggle in the second game to, let's just call it right out of the way. The LEC performance from Isma on the Nidalee on the other side.
Yeah, and apparently there was potentially some drama here because obviously Isma played games in the winter split for SK, and there's supposed to be rules against that, but there was something to do with the substitute where they got a pass from Riot to start him. So I don't think there's actually any drama there, but obviously Exa, formerly Exakick, renamed, also here. So a couple of LEC, and we know now that K-Corp is an incredibly well-run organization. So obviously the competition level for EU Masters we knew would be at a much higher level than the NLC, which, let's face it, before this year was kind of an irrelevant region before Los Ratones showed up. But absolutely, they were tested and put down. But yeah, seeing the communications, obviously what we've seen throughout all these scrims and different matches, it's what makes this team endearing, humanizes them to see them struggle and be able to bounce back, and it's why they have such an insane fan base and following, alongside already actually being celebrities in the game. But fret not, they're not done. This isn't the end of the road for them. They have that last showdown, last chance saloon against EWI, which is a German squad, and this is the do or die. They win, they advance to the next round. They lose, and EU Masters would end tragically early for the boys.
Now, this is where it really does get interesting because it is that do or die. This is where you've now been tested. You've been dealt a blow. Are you going to bend or are you going to break in this type of situation for the Los Ratones? And I think it's adding a little bit of extra flair and spice to it, given the emotions and tilted nature of this the second game against Carmine Corp here, and how things played out, leading now into the questions of can you regroup, can you find that bounce back performance, and what do you change? How do you change all sorts of things within this team for Los Ratones moving into this opportunity to potentially go either through to the knockouts for the EMA Masters or to be kicked out?
And I've seen a lot of people talking, especially, it's easy to do so in hindsight after a loss, talking about the emphasis that Cadril and the squad had on lane swaps, especially, obviously, Sion is basically the premier top laner when you are doing these lane swaps. They outplayed everybody in the NLC using this playstyle that was at the forefront of the competitive scene, and then, of course, whatever patch it was completely nixes lane swaps in general. So maybe this is an angle of Los Ratones struggle. I hesitate to even say struggling, being slower to adapt to a new meta. And yes, this is the opportunity to see how quickly you can bounce back, because there's not even a day in between to sort yourselves out.
I think it's a significant change that came through in the patches regarding lane swapping and the ability to really viably make this work in a lot of scenarios, which was what Los Ratones used in a lot of these games, a lot of these cases, to find the advantages, to push themselves into that winning position in these games. And as we talked about, that Sion pick being a big one for a guy like the Baus and the role that he played within the team, having that band away. We love that type of strategy. We talk about it within certain series, best ofs, when a pick is emerging, to just say, you know what? Show me something else. Show me that you can still achieve that result, that win. You're better than me, whatever. But you're going to have to do it with something else piloting it, with something else being that driving force. That's going to be the question, I think, as we move into this quick transition to the next matchup for Los Ratones, is do you have anything? Can you make that change? Because I think outside of even just individual aspects of that Sion pick, there are enough changes within that game from that patch that significantly are going to require Los Ratones to shift their plans or shift their priorities within the game.
And again, let's keep in mind, despite coming from what is historically a weaker region for the EMEA Masters, this team has the most pressure, the most hype around them, because they're so popular, probably that any squad has ever had at an EMEA Masters event.
Without question. There is no comparable to what we have seen and what attention is there for this Los Ratones team. So that's, factored into it. Now, I don't think they're going to get too much sympathy from too many people when you look at the names like Reckless, like Nemesis, that have been in environments with a lot of pressure and attention and atmosphere. Even someone like Baus with the numbers that is generated to the stream type of thing.
And the
You're
trash
not gonna...
talk.
Yeah, and of course the attitude plays into that one as well. I just think that, again, out of all this type of one, it would be one of those ones where it'd be really unfortunate to have the run of Los Ratones end here in this type of situation. So I'm sure lots of people are hoping the run continues into the next matchup.
I'd be surprised if they lose the next matchup, but people got to remember that the LFL and, the Spanish league, these are the premier leagues for the ERL. So even if we love hyped for Los Ratones, the champions from these regions should still probably be the favorites for these events because they have the experience doing it. But obviously still the very early days of this EU Masters event, as we're in the small off season between Split 1 and Split 2. As soon as first stand is behind us, T1 waste no time saying, let's grab those headlines. Let's grab this news cycle. We heard the calls. We were maybe not so transparent with how things transpired with Smash coming into the starting lineup. So Mr. Joe Marsh says, let's get this out in the open. Before the split starts, we'll do a big mega post about it. But I got a few issues with this, and I think a lot of people do. You try to be transparent. You try to get rid of the drama. And the boys just made more drama for T1 heading into this split.
You said T1, is grabbing the headlines, grabbing the drama. I think they were actually trying to avoid the headlines with something like this. This type of statement was really supposed to be one of these ones that flies over, gives a little explanation, and then, hey, everything is settled, everything's cool and calm. That's not how it is with this message from T1. And I think we can go over these type of problems, but it all really starts that, well, it's not very organized, this message and the thoughts that have come through from T1. You know, you have Joe Marsh coming out and saying that individually he wants Gumayusi to be in that starting role for a variety of reasons. And then he goes on to outline that, well, the coaching staff felt it was best with Smash in the starting lineup for the group and what they were trying to do in that first split. And that moving forward, they had decided that they're going to listen to Joe Marsh and that it will be Gumayusi in that starting spot for this second split that we're coming up towards. But at the end of the day, it still will be up to the coaches and what they decide on who will be in that starting lineup. So no real answers come through in this one other than really just starting to make things a lot more messy at the end of the day.
And this is PR 101 that's being broken here from T1. This happens all the time in traditional sports, of course, in esports. CEOs, owners of the team, they can make that last second call, say, hey, why isn't this guy playing? Play him more or I'll cut your paycheck, right? It's as simple as that. That happens in sports all the time. What you don't do is make public statements basically saying that. And I'm going to quote these to get them completely correct. Basically, one of the reasons why Smash started was due to ongoing internal discussions between management and our coaching staff as we worked towards the best path. That to me reads like I wanted him to play. I wanted Guma to play, but for some reason they wanted Smash.
Also, it's a very much a word spaghetti type of mixture type of thing for that. And any time that one of these statements comes out where it is a word spaghetti and it's not just a simple straight cut line type of answer, there's something going on.
Three separate posts was how long this statement was.
There's some mess to clean up here. And I know things within esports is a little different as you're dealing with younger people a lot of the times and these type of things. But it makes me think of Moneyball and old Billy Bean, where he's talking about, you know, if you got to send a player down, you got to cut him, you got to trade him. What do you want to do? You want to stab him 5 times and then send him out the door? Or do you want, you know, one and it's done type of situation? And I think that's what the problem really here is for this. If you didn't get any type of clear, concise answer at the end of the day, as far as what that step is moving forward for the T1 organization, I have to imagine part of Joe Marsh's decision on wanting Gumayusi to start is not purely out of just loyalty for what he has done for him individually, as well as for the T1 brand and organization. It's part of that marketing. It's part of that dollar value that happens when Guma is in the lineup and he's in that starting lineup with the fan voices that are there for him to be there. It's a little bit, well, not just a little bit, it's quite a bit easier and quite a bit more lucrative to have him there as opposed to trying to build up Smash and everything else that goes with it. This is a total mess from T1. And at the end of the day, it's pretty crazy that the only positive angle, only type of spin reality that I could find from this one is one where maybe this is Joe Marsh putting out a statement and trying to get in front of everything with T1 and saying, I'm the fall guy. You got a problem with all of this type of stuff, whatever it is, it's me. Put it at Joe Marsh. Don't put it on Gumayusi. Don't put it on Smash. Don't put it on the coaching staff, T1, whatever. No trucks. Just send him to my house. Just Joe Marsh. That's it. That's the only angle I can think of. And even then, I don't think that's really the angle that's supposed to be coming across from this message.
Yeah, and listen, Joe Marsh is usually a guy who's picking up W's. Everyone loves him as the CEO of T1. But yeah, again, the other egregious quote is straight up saying, Joe Marsh, I have requested that Gumayusi be part of the starting lineup, and as a result, he will be starting when the regular season begins, which is kind of a bit of a weird power flex, but we get it. He's the CEO, but now all of a sudden, you're potentially starting the split on an awkward footing where maybe the coaching staff, maybe even the players believe that Smash is the better starting option, but Joe Marsh says start Guma, so now we're starting Guma, and it just feels like, obviously, we don't know the behind the scenes, but it feels like the dynamic and the vibes are thrown off before the splits even started.
Yeah, this is not how you wanted to have that bounce back split for T1, and even, you know, Joe Marsh calling it a top 6 placement for the group. Top 6. That ain't going to cut it.
That's not what T1's striving for.
That ain't the T1 organization when you're taking a celebratory run for top 6 in a split. Not what we need to be seeing from them. And certainly this wasn't the way that anybody really wanted this any of these questions regarding this situation to be cleared up either way, if it was going to be Gumayusi returning to the starting lineup, or if it was going to be Smash rolling on through, or if it was going to still be a situation where it was uncertain. Coming through with this type of message and its reaction from the community simply is not it for T1.
And by the way, people taking the easy path saying, they finished top 6 with Smash. Why isn't Guma starting? Okay, again, relive the split, guys. They played Hanwha in the first round. Did Hanwha end up being a pretty good team? I can't remember how the split played out.
And I don't think in a lot of these matches or these situations where we're pointing the finger down at Smash and saying either his skill set or his experience were the problems for T1 at the end of the day. So, look, this is just a very messy situation. It's not been made any better after something that we thought was the only path to make this better and really explain it to the global community. It's just simply blown up in T1 and Joe Marsh's face. And unfortunately for T1, I don't think there's really any type of remedy for this until you start to get the games in action for the LCK.
And again, the way this is set up in reads is Guma might play the first week or two, and then the coaching staff says, yeah, we want Smash, and he's going to be starting. But either way, it is going to be the 6-man roster, and maybe they can navigate through this to actually thrive. As we know, it's fearless for the rest of the year. Maybe they can start working on different champion pools and picks for these two guys, like we saw CFO doing with Rest and Driver.
It's possible. I think that is an angle. I think it's
harder with 80 carries than top laners.
Yeah, that's the problem. Really, at the end of the day, is it's a little bit more difficult with the position and what you can, really flex and allow through in that type of one. Maybe we're being a little too narrow-minded, and there's a way to further, explode and break out the meta in these type of ways within Fearless for that role. But ADC, I'm willing to be on the skeptical side for that one. It just is questionable. It's one of these ones where either you should have made the choice of we're going with Gumayusi, his experience, his role, what we've done with T1, we're going to play it out through the year, or you fully commit and say, yeah, we're rolling with Smash. This year is going to be about bringing him up to speed with this main roster and getting everything sorted out. We thank Gumayusi for everything, and we're going to treat him very well throughout the rest of this year and then find the best avenue path for him moving forward type of thing. But what we have here right now, this middle decision type of indecision sandwich, is absolutely not the meal that anybody wanted to be eating from T1.
And we'll have to wait now till April 4th. Friday is the debut for T1 as we got the LCK schedule. They'll match up against DRX, but the schedulers did well because the season kicking off with Hanwha Life versus Gen G on the Wednesday.
Oh, goody. LCK delivering with a nice prime matchup. Usually, if not the very first one on the schedule within that day or two, you do tend to get one from the LCK. Happy to see that rematch of the finals showdown.
Also going to have T1 Gen G that first Sunday on the weekend. So that's when the real test for Guma will be matched up against Ruler and the boys from Gen G. You want to talk schedule. You want to talk crazy burnout. T1 might be actually thankful. It might be a blessing they did not go to first stand because seeing now this Esports World Cup, which we're familiar with from last year, and listen, if you're going to watch, if you care, if everything, all the, controversy surrounding this, the teams are going to go. The players are going to be there, and this event is now, it's 4 days. All this going in 4 days. There's more teams. It is 4 days after MSI wraps up. And I know, however you qualify for this event, the top 4 teams from MSI get a bye to the knockout round, but that's like 2 days into the event. So you have basically 4 to 5 days from going from Vancouver to Saudi Arabia, Mark.
I'm ping-ponging on my reaction to this one, and I'll explain. Really, number one, my first reaction was panic over whether that 4 days with MSI was going to be 4 days before MSI. Then I would have had a real issue with it. 4 days after MSI, I don't think is ideal for anybody, but at least it's not necessarily directly interfering with the MSI event, and you can keep that, as clean as you can in that regards as far as the schedule. But then you move into the problem as far as these teams heading to the event and adding on this another event within that type of scheduling in that time period, I can promise you, no matter how you want to, minimize it, little it down, whatever you do in these 4 days, that 4 day period will enact a toll. And whether that toll is going to be felt a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, 3 months down the line when we're getting ready for the World Championship, you will feel that toll of adding this type of event, this type of travel to your schedule, and that focus and preparation. And I don't know if too many teams are going to be thrilled about how, absolutely sardine packed this year is starting to really shape up to be.
You already heard Yike and KC talking about when they had to come over from First Stand barely a week after they won the LEC finals. By the time you get there and do all this media promotion stuff, you're basically playing stage games. There's no time to practice. There's hardly any time to even rest and get acclimated to the scene. There's not really going to be any media stuff for the EWC, but coming over for a 4-day event, and this event, not even Riot sponsored. Some of these players might not even want to participate in it, but Riot has signed the check, cashed out for this one, and the players will be going. I agree with you. I really hope this doesn't impact things going forward, and there's an actual sizable break for Split 3 towards the end of EWC.
And again, a situation where your employer, Riot Games, is absolutely benefiting out the wazoo as far as financials, exposure, all these sorts of things. And you as the individual, no matter what that prize pool, no matter what that, earnings percentage is going to be from this type of one, I promise you, it's not weighing out to be that equal or fair compensation at the end of the day. I think this continues to be an unfortunate blemish within the esports ecosystem that we have right now. I think it does lead to some interesting conversations and matchups and competition that we do get. Is it all worth it for multiple type of reasons? My answer is no, but I think unfortunately becoming the minority in this one.
Ain't nobody putting their EWC trophy alongside their MSI or World Championship trophy. That's just...
I don't even put it beside the First Stand one. No way.
It's going in the closet that no one opens except for when they have to get the vacuum to clean. But that is it today for League Unlock. Eric and Mark here with you, absolute beauties. Thanks for hanging out, and we will catch you on that flippity flip.